Hello, my name is José Cabral. I'm a Brazilian architect and I'm a professor at the School of Architecture at the Federal University of Minas Gerais in the city of Belo Horizonte, Brazil. The title of my presentation is From Network to Lacework, a new imaginary for global conversation. There is no doubt that global conversation is a reality and a challenge. A reality because distance is no longer a barrier to communication, and a challenge because most of our communication doesn't turn into proper conversation. Back in 1908, Gordon Pask warned us that too much togetherness could be a disaster. In the past, conversation has often been hampered by lack of communication, he says. In the future, the familiar barriers, such as geographical distance, are unlikely to be obtrusive. Conversation will be more endangered by excessive togetherness. And he goes on. It's fair to suppose that the pathologies manifest today at the limits of togetherness on the occasions when there is communication, which looks like conversation, but it's not at all conversational. Those pathologies will be amplified in the information environment. They appear as major hazards in the future. So here we are in the future. Unfortunately, Pask was once more a visionary, and we are now facing the dark scenario he was predicting back then. We are caught in the excessive proximity and uniformity of our social media bubbles. If too much togetherness is our problem, as it seems, communication networks are the place and the reason of our almost perpetual getting together. In fact, network is everything now. The network concept has spread and became a pragmatic and conceptual tool that describes and encompasses most of our lives. Indeed, network has occupied our imagery. And this imaginary has a profusion of shimmering networks completed with sparkling nodes. However, the network concept is so widespread and so generalized in its application that it is no longer helping us understand the so-called networked phenomena. What I would like to do here in the short talk is to suggest an alternative imaginary to allow us a perspective that may be richer than this mathematical and abstract geometry of lines and nodes interlinked in a mesh. I would like to propose a playful displacement of images from network to lacework. My guess is that laces may be a more refined description of what we want to convey when we employ the network imagery. I hope it may help us to refine our gaze into the interconnectedness of the world, or at least into the intricacies of our contemporary culture and its global communication. Lacework is not culturally relevant nowadays since they are mass-produced by industries and are only marginally expressive in the field of arts and crafts. However, it wasn't always like that, and laces were not as banal as they are today. Ancient portraits of nobles, kings, and queens show them wearing costumes adorned with laces made of gold threads and woven with precious stones. Clearly, the intricacy of laces were an indication of a person's social status. As a time-consuming activity, laces were seen as assets and valued according to the energy spent in their fabrication. Much like most of our goods, including bitcoins. Actually, they had the same status as jewelry, and they were at the center of commercial war between countries, being smuggled through borders in the most bizarre ways. To a certain extent, lacework is just another type of network. However, it presents some visual distinctions and structural differences that ask for exploration. Visually speaking, laces are usually decorative, employing abstract or figurative patterns. Even when consisting of abstract patterns, laceworks are playful, while networks are, first and foremost, functional structures that aims to be devoid of any symbolic meaning, as if it were possible to do that. A network, or at least the way we represent it, comprises of a collection of straight lines articulated by nodes. Viewed as communication channels, networks are an aggregation of linear talks that change directions within the nodes. Contrary to network, the change of directions in a lace is much more organic and fluid. Instead of a straight connection between two nodes, we have the linearity of threads twisted and mingled via topological knots. And more important, this twisting creates distinctions and originates patterns, a variety of patterns that are interconnected and may establish a conversation amongst them. It's true that some physical networks actually use twisted pair cabling, but that's only to avoid crosstalk, not to create extra patterns of conversation as laces do. It's interesting to observe that patterns in laces are built around empty spaces, and that's essential to distinguish lacework from normal fabric. So we can say that in a lace, meaning is constructed by bordering the emptiness of transparent holes. In a network, on the contrary, empty space does not play a significant role. What's essential there adjusts the connections and nodes. In a lacework, the empty space is similar to a black box. Perhaps we should say a white box, a void we can see through, a field of no knowledge, and yet it is necessary to articulate the whole thing. Another point where laces appear to be a more adequate image to what we need today is regarding variety. It is true that networks also present a kind of variety, as they are arranged in different topologies and have variations in their densities. Even so, they appear much more homogeneous when compared with the richness of laces, which are structurally open to human creativity, naturally dealing with beauty, poetry, expression. If networks have a pretense to objectivity, laces unashamedly disregard it. Laces imply that the observer will be always there in admiration. Contrary to networks, that shows itself as an abstract entity, lacework, even as a finished product, keeps visible its fabrication process, and we can at least intuit the person behind its fabrication. When we look at lace, it's hard not to admire the craftsmanship that brought that piece into existence. In a way, the presence of the process implies the presence of the other. And I love this picture. But if lace are to be an inspirational image to global conversation, we should try to describe it cybernetically. So let's go. Lace is a system that results from the shuffling of linear threads in order to create distinctions around empty spaces and generate patterns that may construct and communicate meaning. That could be the description of Alan Turing's pilot ACE. ACE is a system that results from the shuffling of linear threads in order to create distinctions around empty spaces and generate patterns that may construct and communicate meaning. Or we can push harder and paraphrase Ashby, Von Foster, Spencer Brown, Glaserfeld, Pask, and Glanville all together. Lace is an abstract machine that brings linearity into a dance, creates distinctions that allows the construction of conversational meaning by bordering the horizon of ignorance. Lace is an abstract machine that brings linearity into a dance, creating distinctions that allows the construction of conversational meaning by bordering the horizon of ignorance. What would be more adequate to inspire a global conversation than such a pragmatic and poetic image? But still, there is one last question. Why bring the image of lace, something linked to frivolity and decoration, far away from functional when we are facing such a turbulent time and on the verge of our own extinction? It seems that we would rather need a pragmatic and functional tool to help us find a solution to this troubled time. But that's the point. It was exactly the sort of pragmatism, looking for objectivity and shallow optimization, that brought us here into this chaos where we are now. So let's go beyond the hazards of uniformity and triviality of our excessive togetherness, and let's twist the intrinsic linearity of our communication networks in order to allow space for a variety of local patterns of dialogues articulated around unspoken tensions, and thus allowing the emergence of proper conversation. Let's weave a beautiful and huge lace out of our conversations, and let's make past wrong in this prophecy. And I hope we will be able to achieve that rather sooner than later. Thank you very much.